Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Good to meet the new people, or to meet people. So I was a design and systems engineer for many decades, and along the way, got inspired by biology, and I think probably, well, Bucky Fuller originally, and then of course Janine's book and et cetera. So I've been a long-term volunteer with the Institute and then also got involved to an organization called INCOSI, International Council of Systems Engineers, with a working group on what they term natural systems. And the distinction is the NASA scientists who started it wanted to make sure we'd consider forces of nature as well as living systems. And that is a difference in the community, if you will. And so what we're up to lately, so there's planning. NASA has been doing a Bioscene conference now for maybe the 5th year. So there's a virtual one in the works for second weekendish in October. 3 tracks: education, diversity, equity, inclusion, and then one on what they call the clusters, which are sort of interest areas. And one of those interest areas is systemology, which Jacqueline Nagel chairs. And then from working with Jacqueline, we also did a tool survey, similar to what Norbert put in the spreadsheet. And out of that work, we came up with a way to think about how engineers do design by breaking it down into small bits that we called morphemes. It came from being inspired by Zwicky's morphological box, and then realizing that high-level tasks may not be the best way to figure out how to fit things into process. So that's one of the things we're continuing to work on. Hope to have a little bit of a presentation at this fall conference. It's virtual. If you're keen on being invited, if you have an interest in education, let me know. I'll put my email in the chat. So the Natural Systems Working Group has been around for 7 or 8 years. We've had a lot of webinars. Many of the illustrious people on this list have been on. The rest of you are invited to put together a webinar for us. They're recorded, but the recordings are not made public. INCOSI requests that, but I'm just putting the Dropbox location in the chat. And then from there, you can see all the recordings and most of the presentation files. And I'll also put in we have kind of a summary website. I'll put that link in a minute. And so what else are we doing? We're starting to produce what are called work products to help engineers understand this whole thing. And one of them is basically supporting material, training material, if you will, for a primer or primer on natural systems. And the idea is to, start bridging the gap for those engineers that are interested but don't really know where to go, because guess what? There's not really a great introductory textbook. There's stuff that's extremely deep, right, in all kinds of fields, but there really isn't just one go-to spot. So we wanted to start that. In that, we're doing these 3 little videos as a test. So there'll be a little talking head in the corner, some images from nature, and they talk about sort of properties, if you will, of living systems primarily, and then tie them into examples from nature and also examples from design. So the first 3 we picked were cycles and oscillation, thick boundaries, and now I'll blank out. I always blank out in the 3rd one. Anyway, thick boundaries is interesting. Boundaries, of course, are a big deal, and thick boundaries is the phrase from Christopher Alexander in his Nature of Order. And how apropos it was that we started the meeting by Norbert commenting about how difficult it is to get and talk to anybody at a corporation that knows anything about your actual problem. They have unconsciously, I think, invented thick boundaries, right? They've been following the separation principle of trees, to keep the developers away from us unruly users, kind of a thing. And so then we think there's a lot, even though it's simple, there's a lot of connections. And so the idea is it could also probably be useful for people interested in the topic to kind of get them going. And we'll probably put them on Ask Nature. So we'll link into a number of case studies or example organisms, and then we'll also find a way to link them into, at least a handful of engineering things. So that's kind of what we're up to. I think so. So that's probably enough. Yeah.